Okay, guys, I'm here to talk about effective efficiency of the mitochondria and efficiency of your body's ability to be able to produce energy. And I'm also holding my vape device here with CBD oil to further emphasize the effect of what I'm actually about to talk about. So what I'm here to talk about is spark plugs. Kid you not, spark plugs. Okay, in order for spark plugs to be effective and be able to produce a spark, they shouldn't be too wet. If your spark plugs are doused with a lot of water, what happens? They don't create a spark. And guess what? You don't create combustion, and therefore you don't create energy. And the same thing can be said for our mitochondria. They survive better in an anhydrous environment, meaning that of an environment that hasn't got a lot of water in it. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't need conductivity. Of course you do. That's where water comes into great effect. However, it really does take into effect the account that we need to take into consideration what's going on within our guts. Do we have a concept of leaky gut going on? And also what's going on within our cellular matrix? Are our cells well balanced between intracellular and extracellular gradients? And how are our membranes in a space that actually supports that as such? And this is where the spark can come into effect to create that initial reaction that you want to get out of the mitochondria. Or if it's dampened with water, that spark doesn't quite happen the same way. And the same thing, it needs to be considered when we talk and we think about mitochondrial health. What's going on within our membrane structures? What's also going on within our diet as well? And the reason why I mention this is water is very much a neutral conductor of electrons. Okay, it neutralizes the conductivity of impulses. So for every molecule of glucose, we have 3 molecules of water attached to it. So in that being said, the conductivity from a high amount of carbohydrate intake, I want you to ask yourself, does that actually promote electron transfer or electron donor or acceptance, as well as it may do when we have a nutritional regime that has a lesser quantity of overall glucose intake, a more balanced glycogen utilization, and thereby less likelihood of extracellular water that can actually create distortion to how well our spark plugs, the mitochondria, are actually able to take effect in producing energy. So this comes down to dietary types. This comes down to what is the best type of diet to support your energetic needs. Well, from a perspective of ongoing balance between NADH and NADPH levels, which are really responsible for, as nucleotides, is the processes for controlling oxidative electron donor acceptance and transference. They are the main drivers, act almost as metals in shifting where our electrons need to be and what needs to accept those electrons. So in order for us to maintain the best integrity within our redox factors, and that being of NAD and NADPH, and the ratios between the two, by the way, it would be best suited that if we were to have a diet well balanced, and not to say exclusive of carbohydrates, but rather still to have them included, but to the point where the quantity of consumption is taken into consideration, as well as the time of consumption, as to when we have the highest amount of NAD plus activity. In other words, when we're increasing rates of oxidative phosphorylation, or when we are trying to instigate a greater outcome of NADPH activity as well. This is where we're trying to activate antioxidants. And this can really be taken about the time of the day, and also the photon exchange that happens with natural light with nutrients such as riboflavin as well as nicotinamide. When we have natural blue light and riboflavin come together, especially when riboflavin is closely attached to serotonin, it actually creates a huge energy transference, one that is sustainable. So that being said, I personally prefer to eat fats in the earlier parts of the day and abstain from a high amount of glucose intake until later on in the day when I have polysaccharides in different forms of sources. Sometimes it'd be rice, sometimes it'd be vegetables. But generally speaking, the first part of the day, my intake of saccharides is very, very low, predominantly that of just cruciferous vegetables, and at times I may include as well some certain fruits like berries and grapefruits as well. However, for the most part, it's in the latter part of the day, and it really comes down to maintaining that state, that optimal electric state of the mitochondria to act as spark plugs for the best possible outcome and efficiency of ATP production, rather than over flooding the body with inflammatory outcomes, subduing and dousing those spark plugs to not produce as energy as well and effectively. For me, Justin McGraw, I hope this was a little bit of an insight as to molecular biology and how organelles within our molecular biology actually function with one another to be able to sustain and to create energy in the most effective manner. Take care, stay optimized.